Okay, I got most of my things going. So this is Parshas Shalach Lecha. So we're going to read this part again, and I want you to listen to this because it's background in a couple of different ways. One is about tefillin. The we have two paragraphs here, and one is in regards to tefillin, and the other one is in regards to what's going on in with Leah at nighttime after midnight. So he writes like this. He said, "Kadei lahavin maimer haboaz." In order to be able to understand this maimer, nachtik machshakos of Arizal. So he goes to the Arizal in Shara Kabonos when he's talking about tefillin over there, which is a very nice little piece. But he's going to tell us a lot about tefillin. B'zel l'shona b'ketzer. Hine b'kol tefillah boim mochim chadash l'zun. So that means he usually count 4 different tefillos. The one after midnight at Chatzos, or when you say Kriya Shema Lamita, that one also. So he said, Nuch mochim come in every time you daven. So that's what you're doing. You're making Yichudim, and as a result of that, more mochim come. But then after the davening is over, they go back and they leave. But even so, they leave an impression there. Now that's part of the inyan that we've been working on, is the impression that's left over. It's called a rishimo. So over here, the Tiv referred to it, or maybe it was the Rav, I'm not sure, referred to it as a shorish, a root. So what this Rishimo does, even though that the Mochin, all the rest of the Mochin have left. So let's just say, for example, that this is the Kesser of the Mochin, or this is an aspect of the Kesser of the Mochin, or any aspect of one of the Spheros that's left over from the original root of it. So I'm just trying to guess what Sphero that would be. But anyway, let's go on with what he says. So this allows them, that is, that Zohar and Nukva, to maintain a certain kedusha the whole day long because of the Rishimos there. The v'tchilas alayla, but when at the beginning of the night, miyad mistalek mezal legamri, immediately the mochin leave gam zam completely. That is, the Rishimo that was left within him still is gone completely. Also Rishimo, the Rishimo goes too. Aval Rishima the Mochin the Nukva, but the Rishima that was left over in the female aspect, which is really here the Taras Tarisatso, the Zeranpen, Mistalke Mistalek Bemena, which leaves him, Niknas the Soch Libel Shelza. So Mimeno leaves her. So Malchus has also Rishima left over. This instead of leaving Malchus completely, it goes over to Zeranpen. Where? To his heart. So it goes rests by the heart. Now this is really a drush in tefillin. The soch libo. So now her Rishimo is gone, but her Rishimo is now inside of his heart. And then the episode Simenika choisim al libecho. So he brings a pasuk and it says, "Place me as a seal upon your heart." So since we see that there's a movement away, they leave the mochin at nighttime. Mizma'atim zun migdulasim. This causes zun to lose their status of superior consciousness as a result of the daytime, that the day was there, and they even had the Rishimo even after the davening was over. So he said, "Za choizer lihiyos bebechinas vok." So Za goes back and he comes back to become an aspect, just 6 kitzvos again. And she goes back to be what she originally was, which is a dot at the end of the yisod of Zeranpen. So therefore the arousal of the dinim now, because this presence of consciousness, becomes much more powerful. Okay, so that's part of his introduction. So now, but what he wants to talk about is the nighttime. That's really what he's talking about. So let's see. V'oda ki b'chatzos alayla. Now he wants to say that at midnight, yesh Yichud Yaakov in Leah. There's a Yichud that takes place, which is called the Yichud of Yaakov in Leah, which is Lamala Menachazeh. And now I see that the reason why he says Lamala Menachazeh is because Leah is really up above the level of Yaakov. Yaakov is at the chest of Zeranpin, and she's up above the chest of Zer Anpin. So that's why it says up above the chest, because Leah is going to come down. That's why I think. Let me start it over again. At midnight, yesh Yichud Yaakov and Leah. There's a Yichud between Yaakov and Leah. Now this is the part that I wanted you to be able to see, and maybe you could locate the book you read again yourself. Or it's actually in that shir. It'll be in this shir too. It'll be in this shir again. So he says that what happens is like this. The Malchus goes down at nighttime into Briah. And he's going to describe what happens. As a result of that, she's no longer present. That is, her Kesser is in Briah. And she's no longer present, really, on the back of Zer Anpin. So here's what he says. So what she that is Leah now, which is from the Chaz of Lamala, Lo kechas teisha sephiras de Rachel b'shayla. She borrows the lower 9 spheros of Rachel. So Rachel's Ketzer goes to Kesser, which is really the essence, the root of Rachel, goes down into the Hechul Kadshi Kadshim of Olam Briah, in other words, she's in the Klipos. What she's going to try to do there is resurrect some of the Nitzutzos that are still in those spheros that broke. So this is what's going on. But so what happened with Leah? So Leah now has borrowed from Rachel her lower 9 spheros, that is from Chachma down through the Malchus of Rachel. So Leah is Leah, plus she has now all the 9 spheres of Rachel, which means that she's really covering the whole backside of Yaakov again, or Zer Anpin again. The spheres of Kesser shall Rachel, so he explains. The sphere of Kesser of Rachel, shehi shorsh ha'atzmos, which is the root, that is the Kesser. These are words I just used because I've read this before. He says that because this is the Kesser, which is really the root, the really essence, Sheba of Rachel. Yoredis leBriah lahechul kadei kadashim. She goes down into Briah to the palace of the Holy of Holies, but the Holy of Holies of Briah, which is right below Etzilus. V'omedes sham ad or haboker, and she stays there until the morning time comes. Okay, so that's where Rachel is. So Leah has now borrowed the lower 9 spheros of Rachel, and she has taken up the whole position along the back of Zer Anpin. And as a result of that, she's in a position to make a yichud with Yaakov, who is at the chaza, Olamata, rather than the chaza going downwards. He's the lower 6 spheros, really, of Zer Anpin, or 7, depending on how we were counting. So at any rate, that's what she's able to fill up that space, and that's the basis of the yichud that we've been talking about in Vayaavor. V'kol hazman machatzos ad boker. So all the time between midnight and the morning, he yosheves v'umazameres v'kora el Zer Anpin. What does she do? She dwells there, and she starts singing. And she's calling to Zer Anpin, Besod Elokim al Demiloch. Now this is I'll translate. He said it is the secret of Elokim, which is Lashon Din. She's in the place of Din because she's in Briah. She's not in the Silus, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Al Demiloch. So what could be like unto you? Now she's calling to Zer Anpin and saying she's down there in the Olam of Briah. And she wants him. I don't know what she wants. Let's see. So then what happens is she does this all night long. She calls to him. Ola nekudis hakeser shalal la'etzilus. But in the morning comes, she goes back into Etzilus. So in other words, her keser, which was down in the Hechul Kadshi Kadshim of Olam Briah, which is Neklipa, now comes back in the morning. So he has a little parenthesis, Ki Leah chazru l'makoma, because at this time that Leah, which was down below, and in a yichud with Yaakov, which we need to understand, as we're working on this, below the chaza are like she's come down to that level. So she says, Ki Leah chazru l'makoma achrei Zer Anpin mechaza lamala. She goes back up to where she normally is from the chaza lamala, And now Rachel is going to fill up the space between the chaza and the mata. So Ilba'or Aboker, Ola Nakudas Akaser Shalom Lachatzilus. Oh, I just read that. So, sorry. Ba'al Yadei Esak Torah Shal B'nei Yisroel. So this is really the chiyuv of getting up. I don't know if you're up in the middle of the night. I always have to get up and go to the bathroom. So, I mean, I could do this, but I'm really sensitive about losing sleep. I'm worried about it. But let's read what he says. Vayidei Esak Torah. So if you were able to get up at midnight or after midnight, any time, Shal B'nei Yisroel hakamim b'chatzas alayla, because there are Jews that get up at midnight. There might be a group in Miami Beach that does it, or somewhere in South Florida that's doing this. So v'heim mosifim ba'koach shetuchul la'alos latzilus. This adds our Torah learning that we do after midnight, gives her the power to be able to koach shetuchul la'alos latzilus, that she can actually go back up into its atzilus. What allows Malchus to come back to atzilus? Excuse me, the keser of the Malchus to come back to atzilus. So he says that's our learning after Chatzos. Let's go on. And so what happens then? This Nakuda of the Keser that was down in Briah now comes back together with Zer Anpin, and she moves into a position of Yichud of Panim Bepanim. V'nikasheres bezroo smalis. She ties herself onto his left arm. The Anikras Gevura, which is the left arm of Zer Anpin, is Gevura, and that's where she is. That's the meaning of the phrase, place me as a seal on your arm. Besod tefillin shal yad lezer anpen. And this is the secret of the tefillin, of the hand tefillin of Zer Anpen. But tefillin shal rosh the nukva, and also the head tefillin for the nukva. Now that's a quote. And the reason for bringing to there is much more to be said, and in the Tiv, if we were looking at that in the Tiv, then he would really flesh it out and make it a lot more digestible. But the basic idea is that I wanted to bring here is what happens with Leah, because that's our subject, and particularly it's relevant to Rachel. They are sisters, so they move together. Rachel goes down, and Leah follows through her footsteps and fills up the backside of Zer Anpin. It's a complicated little thing, but we're working on it. Okay, was that okay?
That's fine. Is there there's a parish on this in the Tiv?
Yeah, not in our Tiv, but in the Tiv, there's a whole Tiv on tefillin, and it's really nice. So all of these things, we have to be zeichet to have time to do them, right? So that's something to pray for, with blessing.
You've seen it. Where is it?
I've seen what?
The Tiv's parish on film.
It's online.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, you have to buy the book. No, I would learn that with you, but we got what we're learning now.
You certainly have something on.
Yeah. Right.
Something, worth learning at this moment. Okay.
But he dropped in an idea, what you're talking about, the seesaw effect that takes place between Leah and Rachel is part of our story. It's also the story of tefillin. Now, if you remember that a few pages back, he talked about an analogy between tefillin, which is the straps, and our thing of the hivarti coming and striking the back of the head of Zer Anpin. It's a very similar situation, but that's all part of that book over there, and we could, I'm trying to think if I could get other times during the day where I could learn. Trying to get, there's more to be seen, and okay, let's go to where we're at, and go ahead.
Study Gimel on Nun. That's where we left on.
Nun Gimel.
Yeah.
And let's read it. Let's read it one more time from the top. I think we read the top last time. I'm not sure.
We did.
Okay, so let's read it again. Now, bearing in mind you have, again, the idea of my question that I was asking, and I think he answered a question of mine. Maybe should have said that. The question is that how does, and he's talking about it, how does Leah make a yichud, who is from the Chaz Lamala, make a yichud with Yaakov? And what does it mean anyway, if they're making that yichud? What does that yichud produce for us? So I think he said that let's see. Well, he's been talking about the beard of Zeranpin, so that's what it's involved in. So this is a pretty abstract. Let's see what he says. He says, "V'hine bechinas avrayo." So the word bavur is the word av. It could be the words avrayo. Hanirmez b'teves v'yavor k'nizkar. So this is all remezed in the word v'yavor, like we've said before. Asher nimshach al yedei ikuv ha'or hachu v'chazaraso. So going back through this story, is that the light is held back, and then it starts going backwards. Vayadei came, and through this then, Nase bechinas yudke vavke al panav keniskar. Now that has to be explained a little bit. It makes the aspect of the hivarti, I don't know if that's what he means, that comes now to the face. Or he means, I'm not sure what he means. Hine gam came garam davar acher lamala, so not only that, but it causes something else up above it. So he says ki also that Yudke Vavke, which referred to the Dal Hivarti that came around the back of the Resha that was in the Resha de Erik Anpin, Hanim Sheches ad Orif Zer Anpin, which extends down to the back of the neck of Zer Anpin, Avra, it passes through that area. In other words, it gets through there. It's a strong light. The nickness of betocha mochen de Zer Anpin, and it goes into the chabad of Zer Anpin. V'chazer of the yatsa l'chutz b'fonav shel Zer Anpin, and then it goes furthermore, and it goes out onto the face. V'chazer goes back. Well, he says chazer means v'yatsa l'chutz. It goes back outside on the face of Zer Anpin. And so he said, V'sham na'asas b'chinas daled tikuni iloyin de dikna, and there's where it makes the 4 upper tikunim that you need for the dikna. V'zer kavana of this kavana, sheniz bayer b'teves v'yavor Hashem al panav. So this is explained over here now. Ki Hashem hanizkar, so because the name that we're mentioning here, she hadalaki varta hanizkar, which is the hair, the white streams that came off of the back of the head of Erik Anpin. Avril al panav dezah, they pass over the face of Zer Anpin. Sham bo b'chinas dalet tikuni dikna, the dikna, and they make over there the 4 tikunim of the dikna of Zer Anpin. So that's really kind of like a little review of what we saw. We did read this already before, or we didn't, but it's not bad to read it again to get back into this. Okay, so let's look at the tiv on number Tzadi Gimel. Let me get a little sip here. Okay, Tzadi Gimel. So that, right, I remember this now. It puts us up at the top of the page. Nun Daled. He says, Va'ata. I'm going to do something. I just need to lift up my camera a little bit more. Okay. So he said, Va'ata Mosif Harav Od Bechina Shena'asis Ayideh Kavanosenu. So another thing that we could have kavana on that would produce this, V'hainu Chutz Mahakavana Shebe'arno La'el, besides what we said up above, which was what? Shiham Shachas HaTipos de Avrayo, which is bringing down the tipos, of which are called in the word of Avrayo. Shehem Osios Vayaavor Keniskar. Shenimshach B'menu Chelik Echad, that one portion came out of this. Shehu Sod Shem Avaya the Av de Yudin, which is the name of Vaya the Av de Yudin, which we know what that is. He says, Al manas la'asos chibuk yoser ma'ulo min arishon. So that's his first part. So I would like to read it again. I'm really sorry to have to repeat it, but I'm a little slow picking this up. So he says, Va'ata Mosif Harav Od Bechina Shena'asis Ayedei Kavanasenu. So we're going to use our kavana to make another Bechina. Behind Chutz Mehakavana Shebi'arna La'el. Now, I'm not sure what kavana he was talking about when he said up above. What is that kavana? He tells us, Shehi Hamshachas Atipo the Avraya, which is to bring the tipos down. Shehem Osius Vayaavor Kaniska La'el, which are that make those words. So Shenimshach Bimenu Cheluk Echad, that from this came out one portion. Shehu Sod Shem Avaya the Av the Yudin, which is that Avaya the Av the Yudin. Amanas La'oso Chibuk Yosef Ma'ula Min Rishon, in order to make a hugging which is higher than the last one, the first one. So the first one, he says that had to do with these three different brachos that you make in the Birchos Avos, and there were two others, and I really haven't remembered them. So he says, V'harayu hu gimel pamim av. Don't forget that rayo means 3 times av, which is all chesed, which is also gematria of chesed. Shal yada na'asa hachibuk hakodim b'ramida. So that's the place where we had the chibuk in the first place. That's our first chibuk. And this is where we always get confused, so we just have to read what the Tivs tells us, and that's the Torah. He says, Achibur HaKodeh B'Ramida, the first one is Begimel Makomos. In 3 different places there is the development of this chibuk. V'Shaloshin is Kabsu B'Smol the Zeranpin. And so these 3 places cause these 3 avs to come in, which is a rayo, and they all take a place on the left level. Shloshim is Kabsu B'Smol the Zeranpin, so they both wind up on the left side of Zeranpin. V'Sham Nischabru Gimel Pamim Av, and that's where you see that are joined together these 3 avs. V'nimshach v'hoilech chelek ha'av hazeh. So now he says the story is like this: a portion of that av shall hatipa b'kav yomim shuhu chesed zer anpin. Let me read it again. V'nimshach v'hoilech chelek ha'av. So a portion of the av shall a tipa that was really a tipa b'kav yamin goes to the right line. Shuhu chesed zer anpin. Shuhu hazroach yamonis, which is his right arm, shall zer anpin. So what was his phrase? He said there travels these 3 for the hug, this hug that we're talking about. So for this hug, the 3 places that we created these avs, or we used this, we could make a kavana on these avs, gathered on the left. And then he says, then a portion of this, then he says, the other on the left, shall atipa b'kav yamin. So then, v'nimshach, there I'm at. V'nimshach v'cholach chelek ha'av hazeh. So then, let's extend it down. And let's take a portion of this av, shall atipa b'kav yamin, goes to the right arm, this right line, which is the chesed, the zeranpin. Shul hazroach yamonis shall zeranpin, which is his right arm. They lasos ke'eit, so that you can make a chibuk at this point, mu'ula, higher level of chibuk, avur hazivugim she'asa ke'etz shehem zun Yisroel Leah Vayaavor. Now I'm a little bit lost, I'll be honest with you. So I need to keep going on in order to, I'll read it again. He said, because where did I get lost? I thought that we were back in the brachos, that we were saying the 3 brachos, they gathered together on the left line, in the left side. And then
the book that's Yosef Rishona, this is the second chibuk, which is greater on the right side. This is when he's bringing down the chasadim, I think.
Okay, well, just so where do we end with the first one? So he said, so he says, if we go back to where it says v'harayu hu gimel pamim av, can you see that?
Yeah.
So he says sha'al yadu na'asa hachibuk hakodim. That's how you did the 3 chibuk hakodim. Ba'amida begimel makomos. There are 3 places in the amida where you're able to create these havayas. V'shaloshin is kabsa b'smol dezah. V'sham nischabro gimel pamim av. That's where you have now this rayo. That's rayo v'nimshach. So there should be a period here, because this is a separate idea.
I think
So,
it's,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
have a period there, yeah. Yeah.
So we have, what did I do with my pencil? So, v'nimshach v'holech chelek ha'av hazeh. What av are we talking about? There's three of them. Which av are we talking about?
This is the second.
Or is it the av of the av rayo? I know it's a second, the av. So we're taking the av of the av rayo, of the bavur.
Right.
And this represents the tipa b'kav. So he says we take it and we put it in the right line. Shuhu chesed is zer anpen. Shuhu has roach yamonis, which is his right arm, shal zer anpen. And why are we doing that? Why are we taking this chesed, I guess this av, putting it in his right arm? Kedei la'asos ke'ez chibuk ma'ula avor hazivugim. And we want to make a higher level of yichud, chibuk here. For the purpose of getting to these zivugim she'asa ke'ez, that she's going to take place right now, which is after, we just saw that's after midnight that we're talking about this now. Shehem Zun, which is a yichud of male and female, of opposites. But the name of this one is called Yisroel Vayaavor. So in Vayaavor, what happens is that you have the yichud right there. Now this is a big, complicated, to me, it's a deeper secret, and I want to read again. Is that okay? From the period, from wherever said the period was. So the period was on the word v'nimshach.
Yes.
V'nimshach v'holech chelek ha'av. That's the part, I guess, of the bavur. Hazeh shalatipa b'kav yamim. It goes to the right side. Shuchu chesed is zer anpen. Shuchu hazroah yamonis shal zer anpen. And the reason why we did that, we put it on the right side, kedei la'asos ke'ez kibuk ma'ula avor hazivugim. So let me put a comma there. So that's an idea. So what you want to do is you want to take that ab, put it on the right side, so that it can make it possible to be able to make a yichud here between Yaakov and Leah. She'ya'asa ke'es shehem zun Yisroel v'Leah b'Vayaavor, so that when you're saying the whole word Vayaavor, you're making that yichud. And he said, well, what happened is that you took the av. I'm saying what I think he said. So that you take the av from Vayaavor, you send it to the right side. Now we don't know why you needed to send it to the right side, but let's say you send it to the right arm, to the chesed, so that it should be in a position to be make this hug when you get to the word Vayaavor, and that hug is for the purpose of a yichud between Yaakov and Leah after midnight. V'Yaakov v'Rachel b'nefilas apayim, but also this same thing, it not works not just like that, because we read that thing like I called it like the seesaw, where Rachel goes down, they both go down, and then they both go back up. So
Not
therefore,
together.
huh?
Not together.
Well, yeah, they do. They're working in tandem. As Rachel goes down, Leah comes and fills her space. When Leah goes back, when Rachel comes back out of Briah, Leah goes back above the chazan. So they're back to the way that they used to be. That was that piece from this morning. So I called it the seesaw, but it's not a seesaw. It's really that they're moving in tandem, like tandem. Two peas in a pod.
Totally confused. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Ask your question.
If Rachel goes from the Olam of Atzilus to Briah, and she goes down.
Yes.
And for that to take place, Leah has to vacate that space. Is that right?
No, she has to fill up that space.
Leah has to fill it up, and then
Yeah, let's look at Rachel. I mean, there's lots of different ways to look at Rachel because she changes. It's a good information for people to know about women. They cycle. Well, anyway, it's Rachel. Rachel is concerned about her children. She's the Shechina, and she knows we're lost. Our loss is her loss. She's not only that, but she created us. She's the instrument. She's deeply involved in everything that's the whole world. That's what I understand. So she comes to us at nighttime when we sleep, and she tries to, I don't know how it works, but to mine out the goodness that was broken when the 7 malachim broke. She tries to bring it out. There's lots of people. That's that.
Where are the?
They broke. They're in Olam Abia. They're in Bia.
Okay, so that's where she descends to.
She descends to the. He says specifically here that she spends only. Yeah, go ahead.
She wants to return these Netzitus that have fallen into the Olam of Briah.
Yes.
From Apilus, right? And she wants to reunite them. She wants to bring them up.
That's the whole process. That's what we're doing. That's what the Zohar, the Rav is telling us. That the Zohar is telling us is that is really what we are doing. This is the purpose of learning Torah. To get the flow going again, you have to be able to build the pieces. So we live in what's called the Olam Atikun. There was an Olam which was called the Olam Nikudim, which came before this, which was very similar. We see it in the different places, but it broke. And that world, the Nikudim, came before the Tikkun. The Tikkun is really working on the basis of this ability to be able to find Kedusha in the darkness. And the ultimate darkness is where we are. And we have mouths and we have eyes, and Baruch Hashem, the ability to be able to learn God's Torah and bring it into this world. And that is the process, I believe, that they want to tell us. Our prayers and our learning Torah, especially so, have the ability to be able to mine out and bring, they're called the Berurim, to bring out the Berurim. So that's an overview of that situation. So that's where Rachel goes. Now, he specifically said here that she goes into the very top part. That's the Heichel Kachi Kachim of Briah. But we know that there are Nutzutzos also in the Heichel Kachi Kachim, if there was such a thing, in Yetzirah and Asiyah, because they're connected. But they're all not in Kedusha. That's the main thing. They're all full of falsenesses and images and, the world we live in. So that's what she does. Now, when she does that, and we're trying to understand the significance, which is a deep one, of the Yichud between Yaakov and Leah after Chatzos Laila, which we learned from the Zohar today that this is promoted by the learning of Torah that people do after Chatzos Laila. So if you're up, you learn a shtickle. So everybody, you know how in Breslov it's so important that Tikkun Chatzos, to say Tikkun Chatzos. Well, it is important. You don't have to do that though. You could do something else. But whatever it is, it's always that's a great thing to do. A lot of people do that. So at any rate, that's something to think about. I'm thinking about it because the Zohar talks about it all the time. Rabbi Mograbi said in answer to this question that there was a different world than we live in now. 150 years ago, when we all were, whatever, you didn't have electricity like you got now. When it got dark, it was dark. So people went to sleep when it got dark. Candle power is only so good, I guess. So it was possible to get up in the middle of the night. Maybe that's what he said. But he says now with electric lights, it's very, very difficult to orient yourself. I don't know. I think it is difficult, but I've tried it many times. So anyway, that's what the Zohar wants to tell us. That's what the Rab wants to tell us here. So it's a complicated story. So he keeps telling us to me the answer of why you need this. Why do you need to have this yichud that takes place between Yaakov and Leah rather, during the period of time where Rachel is departed? And let's see where we're at right now. So we just read that the yichud takes place also though with Rachel. There's another yichud which we're not focusing on right now, but when you get to Nephilas Apayim, the David Hashem Ori, or what? It's not Shem Ori. I forget. Oh, V'or hatipa she'ana mamshicha melamala magia l'sofa yisod shel ima. Let's go back to this. So we have these two places where we produce these Yehudim. One is called Yaakov v'Rachel. One is called Yisroel Leah. So let me just digress. Just 1 second. Why does it say Yisroel Leah here, and the next one says Yaakov v'Rachel? Now Yisroel is another name for Yaakov, but normally it refers to Zeranpin when Zeranpin is full. In other words, he's either 9 or 10 spheros, depending on your count. Here would be 9 spheros. So that means that Leah is having in Yichud in the middle of the night with the entire Zeranpin. Mm-hmm. When Rachel comes back, she has a Yichud from the Chaza Lomata of Zeranpin with Yaakov. That's a whole other story of how that happens, which I'd like to know, but he gets to it, a bit. So he says, let's go back. V'or hatipa she'ana mamshichim melamala. So now we have this tipa that we're trying to bring down. We're pulling it down from up above. Magia l'sofa yisod shel ima comes to the end of the yisod of ima. Umakam zeh nimsa b'chazer shel zer anpin. Where is the ultimate end of the yisod of ima? It's at the chazer zer anpin. V'sham anu ma'akvim osel. So now he goes back over the story again. And he says, over there we hold it back. V'hu bokeh b'chitzas ima. And so then it breaks through the walls of ima. V'yotze ben shtei zroas hazer anpin. And now it goes out in the middle, I guess, between the two arms of zer anpin, shenimsayim b'makom achazer, which are found at the middle of the chest. I guess he means the chest. Now this is something else too. This light that we're talking about, it also goes around the back of Zeranpin. And it shines over there also into the place where you originally had the nukva. Now, what happened to the nukva? Where did the nukva go? The nukva is in the Yichud. Rachel went down into Bia, so I'm not sure exactly. So he said, so originally, I guess he's saying that Malchus was back to back with Zer Anpin from his Chaza Lamata. So now she's in the front of Zer Anpin. But the light that's coming down to this tipa is going to come onto the place where she used to be. Now, this is making any sense? So let's go on. That is the place of Malchus where she was when she was clinging onto Zer Anpin back to back. So he says, so through this light, let me put some more light on my thing. So he says, through this light, the Or Hazeh, Yachad im Shorish Nukva, and also with the root of the Nukva, Shenimse Ba'achre Zer Anpin, because he said the rule that anytime something appears in Kedusha, it leaves a Rishimo. Vayidei Kach, Nishla Mazam, Metation Sephiros La'asos La'eser Sephiros. So this is how Zer Anpin now picks up another 10 Sephiros. Would you like to read that again? I really shifted to a new idea, and I'm still behind.
Where do you want to start?
I'll try to find it. Let's just start where the last word of the first word of the line is Zer Anpin, and it says V'sham anu ma'akvim oso. So we hold it back. V'hu bokea mechitzos ima. It breaks back through the chitzavin. I think my question is that what happened? Where is the position of the nukva right now? Is she in the front of Zer Anpin? So that therefore the back. Did I miss something here? So go ahead.
He's in the front.
Okay, so that's what he's saying. So I'll read it through, and I will try to get back to that. So he says what? So they're now in the front is Zer Anpin at the chest. But what is this? This is the light of what? The light of the tipa? That's what I thought I said the last time. Umeir gam sham b'makom shachoysecha b'techilas hanukva b'nichilach hanukva, and it shines also both the place where the nukva used to be, which is now in the front of Zeir Anpin, and it's shining there too. Shehi hamalchus hadevuka b'Zeir Anpin ach ba'ach. That's when she was achor ba'achor. I'm going to keep saying ach ba'ach. That's my way. But Yedei Or Chazeh, so this light there, Yachad, Im Shorish HaNukva, because you have the root of the Nukva still there. Now you have these two lights together. Shenimsa ba'achri Zeir Anpin, and now they're together in the back of Zeir Anpin. Vayedei Kach Nishlam Zeir Anpin Metesha Sephiros T'Eses Sephiros. So this is what makes Zeir Anpin complete, because now this Rishimo joins together with this aspect of the Tipa that goes around the back of Zeir Anpin. So the tipa itself really needs to be examined, if you ask me. I mean, I thought a tipa would go inside, not outside, but he's telling me that the tipa has an inside and an outside. So I guess, is that what he's saying? He says, because therefore the tipa goes in, but it's also on the back. Okay, so I don't know that answer. So maybe I'll figure it out. V'zehu lashon al panav. So this is the concept of what it means on his face. That when you said Vayaavor Hashem al panav. So I think he said, didn't he say previously that when you say Hashem it means the stop up? And then the stop up causes also all of these other things to take place. And as a result, the meaning of these lights now, it winds up al panav on his face. L'rmos shal malchus Leah ki ma'alav. This is to teach you what? That Leah is up above him. V'hi ma'ula u'me'ira yosem Zeir Anpin, then she's on a higher level. And she shines more than Zeir Anpin does. Hine chutz the me'inyan zeh, besides this, na'asa al yedech ha'kavona b'tfilosein, which also takes place through our tfilos, od tikun achar lamala, there's another tikun that takes place even on a higher level. Okay, so I'm not sure I understand, so I'm going to keep going on. So he says, V'hinei hadavar ha'achar she'nigrom al yedei tefiloseinu hu. So the other thing that happens as a result of our praying, ma she'bir la'el she'choyu b'soch p'nei Zeir Anpin yud gimel tikun lidikna. It's something else there. We're through 13 now. We had this breakthrough from all this light that's coming through of the 13 on the face of Zeir Anpin. But they don't have the strength to be able to actually bring out these 4 tikkunim chadashim el mechutz p'nei Zeir Anpin, to really bring them out. So in order to be able to break through the face of Zeir Anpin, so you have to use then the name of Havaya Shaladalaki Barti Shal Rosh Erik Anpin, which is back to our 4 Yud Ke Vav Ke, that is those 4 that are coming off the back of the head of Erik Anpin. Sheyored Me'achre HaRosh Derek HaOrif, they should go down behind the head, on the path of the back of the neck, Shal Zeir Anpin, V'hu Magil L'makom Orif Zeir Anpin, and it retreats to that place, which we've seen this idea already. Umakasham, and it strikes. This light is a striker. V'yedei kach meir sham, and therefore, as a result of that, he shines there. V'yedei kain, v'yedei kach, nekneses havaya zu shal chachivarti desoch moach Zeir Anpin. So he's repeating that idea again. So as we are now extending out and pushing out these two lights, the or rishon from the tipa, it breaks through the levush of the yisod of Zeir Anpin, which is the inside light. So still has to be, that is, he says that the tipa, the light of the or coming into Zeir Anpin on his inside, it says that's what causes the walls to break down, but he's saying that this is an inside light. Later he says there's also an outside aspect to it. The second light there, which is the outside light, and this is part of the question I was asking. Hey mischavrim yachad, they go together and they make one. That's the inside light of the tipa with the outside light of the tipa. Umakim umeirim b'mochim shal zer anpen, and as a result of the meeting of all of these lights, they strike the mochin of zer anpen. V'keven sheyesh lechem b'yachad or chazak, and now this has a very strong light. Yotzach al rasa l'chutz mimochi zer anpen. So it comes out that the illumination from this, the radiance of this goes out from the mochin of zer anpen. And it makes a higher level of beard that already exists. He already has 13, but now it makes an even higher level. Besides the 9 that he had already, the Yud Gimel Tikkunim, and it finishes off his beard into 13 Tikkunim. So let me just finish off here. V'zohi hakavana chashniya. So this is the second kavana. Sha'anim mekuvonim b'pasuk shel Vayaavor Hashem al panav. What's the second kavana? Chutz mehakavana rishonu shel al panav. There was the original one that we talked about, the Ramos, that was to really hint at. Shal Malchus Leah ki ma'alav was the teacher that Malchus Leah, that Leah is above Zer Anpin. V'hi ma'ulo me'ira yosim as Zer Anpin, and she has more light. She's about the dimension of greater light. The answer is spheros, and she, though, that light, is able to complete him to be 10 spheros. So he says that the 4 letters of the chivarti, that chivarti, sheyored ma'achra rosh derek ha'orif, that's going back behind the head, over to the back of the neck, shozer anpin. V'niknat the sof moach zer anpin, it goes into the moach zer anpin. V'ka'asher nifgash ba'or harishon shal hatipa. Now there's a tipa still there, and when it runs into that tipa that's inside of the mochin already in zer anpin, hey mischavrim yachad, they become one. Umakim me'ir v'mochim zer anpin, they bang their way out through the mochim zer anpin. V'yotzem rasam el mechutz l'mochim zer anpin, and their hara goes outside of that. So now we're going to make 4 tikkunim completely in the chadashim, the yonim, the zer anpin, that are on a higher level. That is the top 4 of zer anpin. So I got to stop here.
Okay.
And I had to review this again. It's a little bit cold for me today, but we'll get back into it, and we'll try to find all the different parts of this and see where it leads to.
Very good.
Thank you for learning with me today.
Thank you.
Kol tov.